The track.
Towards,
We'll walk the hill.
towards all Flint Road, right on Flint.
There you go. The other side of the track.
Good.
Yeah, that's the fun stuff.
It's a good sign.
There wasn't much. I was 15 minutes.
Okay, hey,
Oh, that's it.
The press box.
good evening, folks. Thanks for coming to, tonight's Lyceum discussion, lecture, Q&A. This is a mix. We've been having a good time experimenting with different formats of the Lyceum. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second, just a refresher for you. But this format, I'm a little excited because it's lecture. I get to ask these guys some questions, you get to hear what they say, and then you get to talk about what they said, all right? So that's the spirit of all this, and basically, first, I just have to thank the Reading Fleming Intermediate School for allowing us to use the facilities. It's most appreciated, specifically Dr. Carrie McGann, Alicia Dominguez, and Stephanie Haver, who've been integral in working out the logistics down to the seats. So I just wanted to thank them. I also want to thank Flemington Improvement District for all their help, snacks, amongst other things, and anybody who's been sort of talking about this. Thank you. It's been getting a lot of attention out there. So without further ado, tonight we are going to be hearing about. Hold on a sec. Why isn't this working? Hold on.
It never works.
I had it. Oh, it was.
Technology.
Oh, isn't that fun?
Yeah. Practice too much.
You know, I just put a new battery in it.
That's what I thought. I can hit it.
You know what? I got it. We're good.
Good.
Oh, that's all it takes.
And that girl.
Now we have soda and water. All right, good. All right, so tonight we're talking about the future of Flemington. And specifically this town of ours that we want to come together, shared vision. All right, we want to have in our minds, in my 6 years on council, you have no idea how many perspectives I've been absorbing, trying to balance, trying to understand. And this particular lecture for me is really important because I think there's a lot here that should have been talked about a long time ago, honestly. And now's our chance. Because basically, we have to understand there's a lot of history that's going to be a part of what we're talking about today. But we're talking about the future. But you can't talk about the future unless you talk about the past, present, and kind of put it all together and kind of see what's on the horizon here. So let me just give you a quick little history lesson if this is your first time at Lyceum, and I see a lot of new faces out there. But what you should know is the Lyceum was something that was hatched. It was a movement in the 1800s, early 1800s. Really reached its crescendo in the late 1800s. And it was basically, now this is before we had public school, and the movement was all about the public's education, right? And it was like, we shouldn't just let the elites be educated. Everybody should have that. So if you know your history, after the Civil War, all the states adopted state constitutions that said guaranteed to have public education. So that's really where a lot of this comes from. And I mentioned that at the gate because here we are in a public school. All right. And I'm going to explain why that's important in a second. But the Lyceum saw learning as important, enlightening as important. So this movement felt that, these sort of things, these formats, these open public discussions were like the civic classroom in their push to have something more organized. Again, it was for everybody, not just those who could afford it. It was lecture-centered learning. People came to learn, all right, about a variety of topics. I love this one. I read this book called American Lyceum, Town Meeting of the Mind. Probably the only book about the Lyceum today, so that's it. And the author says that politics, these are his words, were barbed with ostentatious firmness, which is, I just absolutely love that about the Lyceum. They were just concerned about learning, that's it. It was reform-friendly without being radical. It was, again, community oriented. So there was a feeling of community ownership over the institution itself. We had a Lyceum building in Flemington Borough for quite some time until it turned into the Flemington Borough Volunteer Police Department building and extended Borough Hall. There was a national network, as I'm going to show you in a moment, with local impact. Again, it boosted public school development. It was a training ground for orators. You have, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Abraham Lincoln gave Lyceum speeches in their earlier careers. It was considered entertainment because that was mental exercise, okay? Imagine that, thinking, learning as a mental exercise. Moral uplift was central, and as mass media rose to the fore, it declined and went away. And now we're living in a moment of inescapable media, all right? So let me tell you a funny story. This past summer, obviously I went and learned about the Lyceum as much as I could, but I went on eBay of all places and just did some random searching around. I found somebody was selling a ticket to a Lyceum festival from 1915 in Flemington, New Jersey. And I said, huh? What? So I put a bid in. Nobody else would buy it. Trust me. I had no competition whatsoever. So
Okay, man, whoa.
like $8. The shipping cost more than the ticket. Now, I used to collect baseball cards as a kid, so I have all these baseball card cases. And I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at the seller put a ruler up next to him, like, man, that is the same dimension as a baseball card. Turns out it was, and in baseball speak, this thing is in mint condition, perfect condition. So I put it in my little case. I went to the another outfit I got to thank is the Huntington Historical Society. Those people are amazing. They have helped me and been integral to so much of this. All right. So I went to my friends there. I said, hey, can we authenticate this? Is this for real? And they had their crack team get on it. And by the way, that's the reverse side. And I even went into research like the ticket click, because it was over the span of a few days. That would be something you see like a train, on a train ticket collector. So our rail history, right? Like, I don't know, maybe, I like to imagine, maybe hey, anybody got a clicker for the Lyceum? Sure. So this was a season ticket, and I asked the Historical Society to help me out. And guess what? They found something from 1915 advertising the event in the Huntington County Republican, and that newspaper reported a little snippet. I won't read the whole thing, but I love the wording. Have you your ticket? And then it just tells you tickets for the Chautauqua Association Lyceum Festival may now be purchased by those who have subscribed to receive their tickets at a special price of $1. And then it later on goes to say, hey, look, we only have 325 spots. All right. So make sure that you write your names on the ticket, which thankfully whoever had my ticket, they don't write their name. And which another cool thing, 325 is the max. My ticket was number 277. So really interesting to see that. Anyway, the highlighted portion is important. The dates, December 3rd, 4th, and 6th, the place, Flemington High School Auditorium. I don't know if you knew this, but Reading Fleming Intermediate School, it's not the original, that's not it. Like, this is not the original school. The original school, you're on Bunnell Street, there's a facade. Now here's another cool history. My maternal grandmother, graduated in 1940 from Flemington High School, all right? That's her yearbook. I found that in the archives of Huntington Central because they were getting rid of these yearbooks. And I'm like, is there a chance my grandmother's yearbook would be in that pile? And it certainly was. So that's hers. Really relief. You see the 1940, they call themselves the farmers, in the whole thing. But I grabbed that picture of the high school because I'm thinking, this is interesting because 110 years ago, here's another Lyceum now, right? And this was a big popular event. And here we are in the age of mass, absorbing all your attention media, gathered in the same place, 100-something years later, with the same spirit, all right? So, in the spirit of that Lyceum, I'm gonna give you a quick little primer, all right? I think there's a story we need to all know about. So we know where we are. We're in little Flemington Borough, one of the boroughs in Huntington County, and ours is really special because we're that, call it the donut hole, right? So we're that little, like, surrounded by everybody else. We're downtown for everybody else, right? But if you've been here long enough and you understand, what's happened to Flemington and what's happening now, I think there needs to be a story that we all kind of understand. And I think there's two parts to the story. Right? I'll keep it brief. First part of the story has to do with economics. And what happened? Well, there was an economic shift, a downturn, right? There was also, the other part of the story is it's a people story, right? It's about who's here, right? So I'm gonna talk to you about two projects that have a little bit of history, but I think that these are integral to understand because I have these two gentlemen up here who are redeveloping this. So Liberty Village in its heyday, you know, back when I was a little kid in the 80s and 90s, it was just pouring with people. And you knew that if you paid attention, there was busloads of people coming in, right? And this was a center of commerce, but also a center of what? People. You had all sorts of like classes, and there was all sorts of goings on, and there was a lot of mingling, right? But you had the first ever outdoor outlet store in the United States was here, right? And that was it. That was huge, massive, right? It's a huge deal. Now, the state of commerce has changed such that there's no longer outlet stores. Instead, we have Amazon trucks, UPS trucks, FedEx trucks going all around our streets, right? Commerce changed. The economy changed. People's relationship with commerce changed, okay? Union Hotel, the center of people. This was all about people. And maybe you were in this room, you have a lot of memories of Union Hotel. Hanging out with friends, watching a parade, having dinner, having lunch, being on that awesome porch. This is being rebuilt, right? You might have some moments where you looked at the back of this place at some point and said, wow, what's going on? I remember I would come here with my kids before we moved into Borough. And we got out of the car, we parked in the Flemington Ford parking lot. And my youngest, he got out of the car, he's like, hey, Dad, is that the haunted house for Halloween? I'm like, no, that is not the haunted house, but it is haunted, I've heard. But again, economics, changing relationships with things, but you know, the hotel, that one is tough for a lot of people because that was such a really important place, a gathering place. You need those places, you know them, right? But, and I did some more research, and maybe you could correct me on this. The last time there was a hotel room, it's 1956. That's what I found. Could be wrong, but I dug it up. So the last time anybody spent a night in there as a hotel patron was 1956. That was the year my house was built. All right. So that's interesting. So it hasn't been a hotel for years. The shift in, you know, the gathering spaces. Liberty Village, same thing. Just the relationship between people and, you know, the economy is just how people behave within that system of commerce. People's behavior changes. And here's what I want to just let you know of. I think, and a lot of people say, oh, you can't compare Flemington Borough to another place. We're our own thing. Yeah, but you got to see patterns. And I think there's an American story here. This is, to me, the most important aspect of any city like these, where you have Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I love hanging. There's so much cool stuff. Arts, entertainment, steel stacks. All right. Steel stacks is a backdrop. We've had proms at steel stacks. That we've gone to the Peeps Fest, right? I mean, there's just tons of stuff. That when Bethlehem Steel went out of business, what happened to Bethlehem? Economically, people left, collapsed. Where's my job? Gone. Everybody lived in Bethlehem worked with steel plants. Like, done. What's that? It's what happens to the economy. See ya. Akron, Ohio, the rubber capital for a long time. Firestone Tire, right? We have Goodrich. That was home. Commerce changes. Guess what happens? Well, foreign competition. How can we compete? Our tires, how can they compete when they can buy them elsewhere for much cheaper? Well, time to pack up. We're done. What happened to Akron? Same thing. Total, you know, like we're talking like cataclysmic levels of economic stagnation. And then they rebuilt. I mean, look, these are cities that I had heard of and were on the up and up. And it's, you know, a city like Akron is now a center of research, healthcare. They actually do have, at this point, one of the companies, it was Goodyear, came back after all those years. The University of Akron, a center of education, change, can happen, right? South Bend, Indiana. I mean, this place used to be, this one. Oh, this one, you know what? This one reminded me a lot of Flemington because they took, the idea of outdoor entertainment. And this place called The Yard. And I thought this is cool because it reminds me a lot of Stangle Factory, where you have a lot of there's just a buzzing place. It's a center of fun, excitement, right? It's completely different than what was there. It was, they're still working on things in South Bend, so far as I can see, but they had 60 years of what I'm gonna call low self-esteem. Because do you know who was famous? Well, who was famous for being in South Bend?
Yeah.
That helped, right? That helped.
But yeah,
But 60 years ago, 1963-ish, Studebaker left. Where are the jobs? Where's my money? What am I gonna do? So how do you rebuild after the main source of your economy leaves? How do you do that? And Greenville, South Carolina. This just sounds like a cool little place. I have never been, but this used to be their textile capital. Are you hearing this? The rubber capital, the textile capital, right? These were centers of massive manufacturing. And then it changed. And then Greenville said, how are we gonna fix this? And they had a lot of historic preservation, a lot of focus on infrastructure, okay? The phrase adaptive reuse comes up a lot in Flemington. In the last 6 years I've been hanging around here in a government position. These people talk about that like it's second nature. This is how we do it. Let's take those old textile mills, let's turn them into cool stuff, all right? So all of these places to me are the same kind of pattern. So we look at our little 1 square mile town. We say, oh no, we're different, we're different. Well, they probably thought they were different too. But take a big look outward. And there's patterns. And if you're paying attention, you can see it. So I thought this was a good place for us to start, because I think these are stories, and Flemington's story is about American resilience. It's about bouncing back when you're down, coming back when the chips are down. This is our time. And I look at these 2 projects and I ask myself, if we're going to talk about the future of Flemington, I think these are the 2 things that are going to put us back on the map. So let's, without further ado, let me introduce my friends here. If you guys, my mystery guests, could tell us who you are, a little bit about yourself. All right. So, Mr. George Malone.
thank you, Jeremy. So, George Malone, I started my business in 1980 in Hoboken by buying a beat up brownstone for $20,000 on 3rd and Park Street. And, ergo, the name of the company, Hoboken Brownstone Company. And not too creative, but it's accurate. So we were in Hoboken for 25 years, the last project, gradually growing from a 4-unit conversion of a brownstone. We took each floor and made it a condo. To buying the Maxwell House Coffee Factory, the largest waterfront site in the town, stretching from 10th to 12th Street and the river to Hudson Street. It had a 1.5 million square feet of manufacturing space under roof on the site. It had riparian rights 500 feet out into the Hudson River with 1 pier that went all the way out 500 feet out. It was the largest factory of its kind in the world when it was built in 1938. It was one of the first Bauhaus architectural styles, which was a very famous style in Europe. Hadn't migrated to the United States yet, but the Maxwell House Coffee Factory hired a German architect and he used the Bauhaus style of architecture, which was very cool looking. So the first thing we did was we wanted to try to do an adaptive reuse, as Jeremy mentioned. We wanted to try to repurpose. We figured of the 11 buildings, we could save 9 of them. The others were just too manufacturing centric and wouldn't be easily to convert to anything. So we started out, we hired the Thompson design firm who did Boston's Inner Harbor, South Street Seaport, Ghirardelli Plaza, a number of London, the Wharf project in London, just one noteworthy, massive impact projects after another. And we thought that's the kind of design firm we want to have for our Maxwell House Coffee Factory. Well, unfortunately, another group in town, a group that was a community organization called Fund for a Better Waterfront, FBW, they had a different vision for the waterfront. They wanted the entire waterfront of Hoboken to be a linear park. And they wanted to have everything, they wanted to create a road along the edge, and everything on the riverside of the road was to be public. Parks, bike paths, fishing piers, and everything on the upland side of the road could be the improvements that the developer wanted to build. So most of the really good buildings were right on the water and right on the pier. So we were running into a vision conflict there. So we ended up saying, fine, we knocked the whole thing down and we built all new. We had 5 12-story buildings on 4 new city blocks, 832 condominiums, 260,000 feet of ground floor retail and office. And the entire waterfront, which was 6 acres of land and 10 acres of riparian rights, we built a park, donated it to the town, along with a 50-year operating and maintenance subsidy, which added about 35 cents a square foot to each condo owner's monthly maintenance fee. We also discovered that the original New York Yacht Club was situated right at the northern end of our site back in 1854, when it was built by Alexander Hamilton's grandson and Colonel John Stevens of Stevens Institute of Technology, his grandson. They formed the New York Yacht Club, built their boathouse on the Jersey shore there, right there at the Maxwell House site. And when the railroads came through in the 1830s, they took the property, where they took the entire waterfront for their railroad lines, which they were allowed to do back then. The railroads were super powerful. And they told the yacht club people that we're gonna knock it down, but if you want to take it, you can take it. So they came in, they took it, they put it on a barge, and for a couple decades, it traveled up and down the coast of the East Coast of the United States as sort of a touring historic thing. And it ended up permanently residents in Newport. If anybody visits Newport, there's a barge there, it's a park, you can go on it, and you can check it all out. So we called the New York Yacht Club up and said, we'd like to build a replica of your yacht club, right where it was in the 1850s, on the waterfront of this site. They loved it. They gave us permission to go up to Newport. We had an architectural team do a complete takeoff. We rebuilt it there. It was hugely impactful for the community to get the park and a boathouse that had this history behind it. So we got unanimous approvals for that project. We built that. That was the last one I did in Hoboken. We then moved into Jersey City, and over a period of from 2005 to 2016, we assembled 7 city blocks right on the border of Hoboken between 14th Street, which is the exit from the Holland Tunnel, to 18th Street, which is the last street in Jersey City before you go under the tracks and go into Hoboken. So, spent another, we went from 05, we spent about 20 years in Jersey City, developed about 2,000 units, all 7 blocks. We built an 1.5-acre park, donated that to the town. We did the first rail trail in Jersey City, where we took an old railroad line that went right past our properties, got New Jersey Transit to come in, got them an $8 million earmark from the Federal Highway Fund, and they built the first leg of what is now a very extensive bike path system throughout Jersey City and Hoboken. The first half mile of that was built from our site right there in downtown Jersey City, right to the 2nd Street Light Rail Station, about a half mile away. Then we moved out of there, did one project in Bayonne. We were trying to do an opportunity zone deal. We found a 5-acre site in Bayonne on Route 440. Tied that up, put up 354 apartments, and then left Hudson County and moved out. And then I had an investor of mine say, we should probably go into the mall business. Let's go into the mall repurposing business, because malls are going down and they need to be brought back up, and they need to be reinvented. So right around that time, as my money people were telling us, let's get into the mall business, I get a call from Frank Banish. I don't know if you guys know Frank or not. Probably most of you do. He's an icon. So Frank, I met Frank because I used to teach real estate at the New Jersey Redevelopment Agency. I would give classes there for them. And Frank was in one of my classes. He was at a long one too. It was like a full day seminar. Comes up to me afterwards, says, hey, I'm in Flemington. It's a great town. Why don't you come up and take a look at it and see what's going on? And so I did. I met him. He walked me around. I knew about Liberty Village because I moved to Clinton when I had my first 2 kids. And we had a little play farm there on Lilac Drive. So I knew about it. I'd gone to the mall. I remember the days it was busloads of people and you had to stand in line to get to the cash register. Wasn't like that when I walked through with Frank. And he says, well, here's a mall you might be able to get a hold of. So anyway, long story short, we did get a contract signed with the owners. And which is Hedge Fund down in Long Island, and I took 2 years of due diligence. The most impactful thing that convinced me to do it was when I met Robin, who runs the Flemington Community Partnership, and she had commissioned a housing study, market study that really concentrated on housing, and it concluded that Flemington needed at least 500 new homes to stabilize its tax base, to reinvigorate its economy, to create traffic on Main Street, which dominoes into the retail sector. And that's one of the things I would have done. I typically will commission a market study when I'm going into a new market to figure out, what the heck is going on, what's there now, what's the future, what's the demand, what are the demographics, what are the movements of the population. I found out that your 3 biggest taxpayers had all left or were about to leave: the mall, the fur factory, and Mikasa. And I knew there was going to be a tremendous pressure on the residential taxpayers, because all the those three assets paid 60% of the tax bill. Left the homeowners and all their taxes to make up for it. So we tied it up. We worked through an approval process. We had a community visioning process, and we were pretty much ready to go at the end of Mayor Driver's term. And then she lost, and Mayor Carroll came in, and she had her own vision for the site. So, we had to go through another 18 months try to come to terms with her and meet her vision. Because, in New Jersey, zoning is right at the municipal level. You don't make the people in charge of the municipality happy, you're going nowhere. So you just basically have to do what you have to do, get the job done, and the job is now fully approved. Those of you that have been by the site, the demolition is now complete. We are now in the process of crushing all of the masonry, the block walls, the concrete floor slabs, the foundations. We're generating mountains of reprocessed concrete, which is going to save us a lot of money, because we can use that as a sub base on all the new roads. We're doing about $5 million of new infrastructure, all new water, all new sewer, all new electrical, all new gas, all new communication lines. All going in underground. We realized that when we were doing our stormwater studies, we realized that Brown Street, we had 2 lots, lot 54 and 55 on Brown Street, connect to the mall. There's a parking lot, and the property manager's house was there. And we also discovered that that's the low part, the lowest point in that whole section of Flemington. That Brown Street is basically where about 15 acres of Flemington drains to in storms. And when they built the mall, they raised the mall up a couple of feet, which essentially became a dam for that water. That water really had nowhere else to go other than into the yards and the basements of the people in Brown Street. And right where Grand hits Brown, that's the low point, and it's right where our 2 blocks were. So in meetings with the neighbors there, we learned 2 things. We learned about this flooding problem, and we learned that there's no park anywhere close to where they are. So we took our 2 lots, which was basically 100 by 100, and we said, okay, we're going to build a park right along Brown Street, the full width, and then behind that 7,500 square foot park with a really cool playground equipment for kids and little chess tables and things for the adults that are watching the kids. And then behind the park, we have a 38,500 square foot detention basin, which is now going to take that water and give it a place to go. And then from that detention basin, it's going to run through a piping network that's going to run down our side of the property along the backyards of those Brown Street folks. As you're heading toward Route 12, there's another 2 basins right at the entrance to the project on the Route 12 side. We're using the same curb cut from Route 12 that used to be the way to get into the mall. Because it's much easier to use an existing curb cut when you're on a state highway. It's almost automatic. They kind of have to let you do it since it's already there. So we're keeping that. Central Station is going to go right up through the middle of the site and connect to Central Station on the other side of Church Street. We're preserving the white brick building at 1 Church Street. That's the oldest building on the site. That was one of the offices of the Ferran Ford. We're preserving that. We're going to do a historic renovation of that building. The Allies building, which is right next to that, where they do daycare for adults with special needs. We're preserving that building too. And We're right now working on a connection from Church Street to Stanger. We have several routes that could potentially connect, because otherwise Church Street dead ends. You know, when you used to go all the way to the railroad tracks heading west on Church Street, you hit those tracks and then Church Street turned left, went down along the tracks, and then you made a right with a grade level crossing over the railroad tracks in between Polo and Timberland, and then you're on Stanger. Well, we own Church Street as it cuts through our property to get to that railroad crossing. And so we wanted to put more housing in there, so that road is no longer there. But now we're working on another way to get to Stanger, which is an extension of Church Street. It may go a little bit to the north. There's a couple of alignments for studying right now, but we would like to see that happen. And those of you that have gone through the parking lot, you may have seen that we actually palletized about 500,000 red brick pavers, pulled all the pavers up. You can't crush pavers and reuse them. They're just not structurally suited for that. So instead of just putting them in dumpsters and sending them to a landfill, we loaded them all on pallets, shrink wrapped them, and I've been donating them to various nonprofits. I gave about 100,000 of them to a railroad historical society in Pennsylvania. I gave another close to 100,000 to the railroad that goes right through there, that runs the historical weekend trains and holiday trains. And we still have about 250,000 of them, and we're designing a rail trail now, a linear park that is essentially a rail trail that's going to follow the right of way of the tracks. And I believe that if we do get that all designed, and there's a couple spots we need some cooperation from some neighbors, there's a few pinch points along that railroad line, and I think that I can't see why the neighbors wouldn't want to let us do it. They're all commercial neighbors. So, you know, what do commercial neighbors want to do? Commercial neighbors want traffic. I tell my engineer I can't talk to him right now. I love the guy though. He calls me at this time of night on a weekday. You can't argue it. So anyway, we were able to we're moving the train station, that platform that ran right between the mall and the parking lot. We can't have it, and I'm working very closely with Keen Baringa, who owns the railroad. He's a great guy, very nice to work with. And we both realized that having a historic railroad belching oily smoke right next to 111 brand new townhouses is probably not a good idea. So he agreed, and we're gonna move that the station is gonna be up north a little bit and around the corner. There'll be a new station there. It will be tied in, hopefully, to this rail trail. And it's gonna connect with the greater Hunterdon County bike path system that's being planned by the county right now. We're gonna make sure that we connect with all that, and we put in a piece of the Flemington part of that rail trail. So what else are we doing? You may have noticed that we're starting to fill in lot 33, which is the large lot, parking lot right across from Polo. That's because it's in a flood zone, and you can't build it in a flood zone unless you raise it up to get it out of the flood zone. So we're in the process of raising that parking lot up about 6 feet right now. And that gets it out of the flood zone. And in order to be able to do that under the DEP rules, if you fill in a flood zone on your property, you have to create storage on your property that makes up for what you just filled. So if I fill in 7 acres, I've got to dig out 7 acres on my site. So the exact same amount of stormwater that was being stored when it was just a parking lot is still going to be stored after we build lot 33, raise it up 6 feet, build 15 townhomes and the 2 veterans buildings typically on that piece. So that's kind of where things are right now. The next step after demolition was the environmental remediation. We have some significant contamination on the property, mostly on the mall side, because on the mall side, there was an iron forge there from a little bit after the Civil War into the 1950s. The last owners were the Ferran family. And I am a history buff too, like you are. And I learned a little bit about the whole forge and the life of it. And you know, the church there on, what's the name of the church? St. Magdalene's. Right. The rectory was the original mansion where the Ferran family lived. And I met the pastor, not the guy there, the guy before it. And he just loved it. He took me on a tour of the rectory, and he was showing me how beautiful it was. He was very proud of it. And it was gorgeous. That's the way they did things back in the days when you didn't have taxes. So that's our preservation activities. You know, we're probably going to we're definitely going to try to do another flood mitigation plan, so we can build on the rest of the park. I would hate to see that, just that one little lot built up with beautiful townhomes and the two veterans buildings, and then the rest of it all just asphalt. So if we're successful at changing the flood plan, and expanding the flood plan, and doing what's very novel to the DEP, we're proposing off-site compensatory storage. So I'm proposing to find a location, and I've got a few in mind, right along the same brook. And I'm gonna, if I get permission from the owners of one of those properties to do this, I will excavate a huge amount of earth, drop those acres down into the flood zone, take all that earth, bring it over to the parking lot, raise it up, just like that one lot's raised up, so it's all at that 6 feet above base flood elevation. And we may be able to fit about another 60 townhomes, we can do that. Spoke to DEP already, they actually love the idea, because they basically said, look, we DEP don't have the money to go into every single town that has a flooding problem and fix it, we just don't have the money. So what we wanna see is exactly what I'm proposing. Private property owners, private sector people getting together and coming up with flood mitigation plans to increase resistance to flooding. So that's where we're going in the future. So the project is comprised of 111 townhomes, 7 of 3-story townhomes, 7 of which will be affordable, and all 12 veterans apartments are also going to be affordable, and they're going to be specifically targeted at disabled veterans families. Those 12 apartments. You want to show any pictures?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, I can,
Yeah, flip through the pictures, and I'll see if I missed anything.
you can tell us.
Oh, there you go. Back up a little bit.
Yeah, so
There
I,
you go.
if you want to tell us about that footprint and.
So here's, I should have brought my little laser. So here was where the mall was. That was the parking lot. You are really
Top one,
working out.
top one,
Top one?
point it right at.
No, where is it? There it is. Okay, so here's where the mall was. All here. Central Station. It's right there where the original entrance to the mall was, off Route 12. We're gonna build it up and curve it through and take it right up and tap it in the second little church here. There's the one Church Street building we're preserving. There's the Allied building we're preserving. Everything else is leveled and it's processively crushed. Here's our lots on Brown Street. Here's where that park is gonna be, right here. This is that big basin we're gonna put in right here to capture the flood water that's coming down. Grand and Brown and from all this entire area of Flemington drains to right there. That's the local right there. So it'll hold in this basin. When it gets up to a certain spot, it'll overflow into a pipe that goes all the way down here into this basin. And that same pipe gonna have inlet ports from these backyards. So if these backyards get flood water, that's gonna drain to the pipe. The same pipe that's draining this basin goes into this basin, and then it goes through a network of pipes under the tracks and down to this ditch right here. This is an open drainage pipe that leads to a pipe that goes under Route 12 and eventually gets back to the brook. This is the piece of the parking lot that we filled. So there'll be townhouses on this side, there'll be the 2 veterans buildings right here, a couple more right there up against this brewery. And then we gave, this is in yellow right here, because there's a new rule that came out last July at CEP that when you're working in a flood zone, not only do you have to raise the site to get it out of the flood zone by 3 feet above the base flood elevation, but you need what they call dry access. So for example, if you live here and there's a flood, you need to be able to drive out of that flood at above 3 feet above base flood elevation, so you can escape. So this road right here is the escape road. It goes up to Stangle and you can go out that way, and that's their dry access in and out of the site. For now, this Forge Road is gonna terminate right here, drop down to the original parking lot level. This is the little tip of that compensatory storage basin. If this picture was able to go over to about here, the basin's about that big. And then it drains into the brook. So that's where the water, when the brook starts to overflow, it'll fill up this basin first before it goes anywhere else. And that's gonna keep the rest of it pretty dry too, but this piece for sure is added. And as I said before, if I'm successful with the flood mitigation, with the second phase flood mitigation plan, this basin will go away. It'll be combined with the excavation we're gonna do off-site. And we can fit, we own, right to here. This is the Dela Cruz Landscaping Company, this is ADR Towing right here, this is the old Platform One. Platform One is owned by a fund, that's owned by the Halpern family, and it curves around here, it includes this parking lot. The same group, is the name of them is Delaware Valley Associates, but it's basically the Halpern and the Stein families. And I've got an option on this property, and that includes this restaurant, I've got the towing operation on option and the Dela Cruz landscaping is on option. So when I go in for this massive flood mitigation plan, to fill in my whole property, I want to fill all this in. And create, just finish this whole thing, so it doesn't look like it's kind of just hodgepodge together, it'll be part of the same type of layout, and part of this neighborhood will just expand and walk throughout, and we'll have hopefully another maybe 60, 70 townhomes. That's probably, I mean, there's a lot of minutia, but I don't think we want to get into too much minutia. I want to keep kind of high level, right? So if you want to go to.
Yes, I do want to talk, not to say, but
Just finish the pictures.
Yeah.
Just see if there's anything I forgot.
yeah, you had some.
So this is a good one here. Everything you see in green is stormwater management. There are bioretention basins between each of the rows of townhouses. We've got, the new road network is all in there. We named the streets Pullman Way is up at the top, because the Pullman Company was a railroad car maker. So we like the railroad theme. Forge Road kind of echoes that there was a forge here in the past. Five Bridges Way, the bottom street there. I like that name because Kane from the rail, I said to Kane, I said, how hard would it be to get train service from here to New York City? And he said, well, you'd have to rebuild five train bridges that are not, they used to carry rail, but now they need to be supported and they're unusable for rail. So I named that street Five Bridges Way. And that's that one. All right, let's go on. This is the phasing plan. We're gonna take down the first 66 townhomes in the first takedown, and then we're gonna do the remaining 45 in the second takedown. So this whole batch here should be done by the end of next year, and that batch should be done by the end of the fall. This is a look of a row of the townhouses. They all are gonna look a little bit different, but this is like one of my coolest elevations I like, so I show this one most of the time. They're 3 stories, they're 3 bedrooms. This is the back of them. They have patios, they have balconies. Oh, keep going. This is the veterans building, one of the veterans buildings. So you have 2 apartments on each floor, 3 floors, so 6 apartments altogether. They're all 2 bedrooms each. There's your floor plans.
And I just, for everybody, the top is the first floor. I know you
First
can't
floor,
see it
second floor, third floor.
really far back. Yeah, I mean,
They're kind of identical,
yeah,
pretty much. There's the park on Brown Street.
I got a few pictures.
I flipped through all sorts of playground, equipment sellers, and I saw this type of stuff, and I said, that's what I want to do. I presented that to the Brown Street folks, and they loved it.
Hey, George, this is.
And here's the basin in the back. Now, that basin was originally, but this is gonna get technical, but I gotta explain something. It's not gonna have plants in it. In July of last year, the DEP changed the stormwater rules from structural systems, which is detention basins that hold water and pipes that take the water to the nearest outlet, to non-structural, what they call bioretention basins. Thinking behind that is, we don't want to have to send water through a whole bunch of pipes and into a stream, and then it goes to a river, and then it goes to the ocean. We want the water to go back to the aquifer. We want it to infiltrate through the bottom of the basin and return to the aquifer. That's what's called a bioretention basin. In order to do a bioretention basin, the bottom of that basin has to be 3 feet above the seasonal high groundwater table, so that there's that 3-foot layer that the water, the trees and stuff you plant in the bushes and everything, they provide infiltration pathways through that 3-foot fill layer, and that allows the water to return to the aquifer. In this basin and the one at the bottom of Central Station down by Route 12, the groundwater table was different than the rest of the site, just because of the formations underneath the ground. And so we only had 1 foot of separation. So in this case, all the trees have to come out of this basin and the one down by Route 12 that was shown in blue, because they just don't have that infiltration pathway layer. And so those are going to be back to the old system, detention basins with pipes and outlets. And that's gonna require a permit from the DEP, but we've met with them already, we explained it, it's a technical impossibility. So they said, fine, we give a waiver for technical impossibility, so we're gonna do that, so that'll be grass. And we're gonna take a lot of those plants and then we're gonna build them around the edge, up the hill and up at the top, so it'll still have a nice look to it. But the basin itself will be a traditional stormwater basin, detention basin, grass bottom. But
Yes.
so that's a view of, looking at that park through the basin. Now, this is the updated picture for you to have a grass bottom on both of those. And there'll be a wall right there. And then on the other side of that's the park. There'll be a bike path here or walking path to connect Grand Street and the park, the residents that are developing. Go ahead. This is coming in off Route 12. There's that basin on the right that handles all the stormwater from the east of us. And then there's another basin on the left. That one is a bioretention basin, because it does have that 3 foot of layer underneath it. So that'll be a planted basin. And then you'll run around that corner and then you'll see just in the distance there, you see the first row of houses on, that was Five Bridges Road, the bottom road. Yeah, so that's the Five Bridge will go across there to the left. That'll be the beginning of the town. This is what you'll see as you turn off Route 12 and start to drive into the site.
And that's where American Eagle building was. on
Yeah.
the Right.
Exactly, yeah, American Eagle and Drone Zone, they're basically right there where those two bases are.
All right, George, so that was what I had for your,
Good?
Yeah.
All right, you're up, Jeff.
It's good job. We'll take a break.
Yeah. Anybody need a bathroom?
Yeah.
I need a break. That's great. It's really interesting. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. And I want to thank, well, you did a great job with this year, putting us together. And, it's really interesting to me, listening to Jeremy and the history. And then listening to George, his history. And I'm gonna give you a little bit of my background. That's gonna connect a lot of dots into everything that these guys were talking about. And I'll give you a little bit of background just personally. We moved to Flemington in 1975. My wife Faith is sitting here with me. We moved to Flemington in 1975. We've been here for 50 years. We actually, our first residence was in Hunter Hills Apartments. That's where we started our family. And I'm a CPA, I'm a retired CPA. I started my own accounting firm in Flemington. And it became the largest accounting firm, one of the largest accounting firms in the state. And we actually ended up doing a lot of work for all of the major companies that were in and around the area. Now, what was interesting is looking at this brought back tremendous memories, because my first largest client was a gentleman named Ted Merritt. Probably a lot of you don't know who that is. I'm sure Lee Roth remembers Ted Merritt. Ted Merritt was the Daddy Warbucks of Flemington, and he was one of the largest brick distributors in the United States. His company, his brick company, was located on the Liberty Village site. He actually built Turntable Junction and he built Liberty Village. I was his accountant and he was a great client. He wasn't a terrific businessman because he was a great salesman. And he was always doing things and doing crazy things. It was great for me because he gave me a lot of work. But what happened was he built Turntable Junction. He would always get into these cash flow issues. And he ended up, Liberty Village was actually Liberty Village before what you see it is now. It was actually a Liberty Village with artisans. It was blacksmiths, it was glass blowers, it was wood makers. And it was all along that way that George had just talked about. People would come and they would watch them and they would do their thing. And Turntable Junction was a retail village that was there. So a couple of investors out of New York bought Turntable Junction from Ted when he needed some funds. And then a few years later, Ted needed more funds. And I said, let's go see the guys in New York and see if they'll buy Liberty Village. and maybe make a factory outlet. I hear this is something that might be coming up, that might be popular. So Ted and I rode into New York City, and we sat with great guys. They happen to be CPAs too, very well known. And within 1 hour, they purchased Liberty Village. And they designed the factory outlet that was Liberty Village, It was the first one in the country. As time went on, we saw a lot of things happening. Jeremy mentioned how popular Flemington was. Buses were coming in here. They were backed up to 202. Flemington Fur was also one of the stellar companies. It was also one of my clients. And they were doing tremendous, but then they fell on hard times because of the fur business and PETA. So what happened that Jeremy was talking about was the demise of two premium entities. Liberty Village fell on hard times because the guys that actually bought it and developed many Liberty Villages across the country. So you didn't have to come to Flemington. They built Woodbury Commons, they built Jackson. So you didn't have to come to Flemington. And that was one of the problems. So that was one of the problems that hurt Flemington. In the meantime, PETA and the fur business, it took its own course and they struggled. So you had these two kingpins comparable to what Jeremy was talking about, that all of a sudden went away. Hurt Flemington. Flemington was the county seat, and one of the wealthiest counties in the country. And we saw a lot of great things happen. When 78 came through, there was a lot of development. There was a lot of residential building at that time. Hunter and Concrete, if you remember that company, they were one of my clients. Flemington Bituminous, they're one of my clients. They were all prospering. What happened after that is after all the residential areas were built up, the infrastructures wasn't there to keep supporting the growth of Flemington. And Hunter County wanted to be a land preservation county and wanted to do smart development where they would preserve the land, but also develop appropriately. As time went on, Flemington started to collapse. When Liberty Village went out, the fur company went out, Main Street, Flemington, all went downhill. This is around, I don't know, early 2010, 15, somewhere around there. There were a lot of problems in Hunter County. The population was aging. There were a lot of different things happening. There was something called the SEDS report, Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. Some of you may be familiar with that. Lee's probably familiar with it. I was on that committee. There were many people, many stakeholders in the county that participated in that. And what that was it was analysis of the whole county about what our strengths were, what our weaknesses were, what our opportunities and threats were. And there was a lot of input from everybody, the big companies, the small companies, all the political people, all the mayors, every township. And what came out of that was that I saw as I was going through it, it was recognized Hunter County had no town center. Main Street in Flemington was a problem, which everybody knew. We also had Hunter County is the only county in the state of New Jersey without a college. So there was a college need that was there. And we needed to protect and preserve our land by creating town centers that have some density. Create a town center with density that protects your open space. So when I looked at all this and I was looking at everything, and I said, the solution to this whole thing is really to renovate Main Street and fix the Union Hotel and do something that was sizable, that would make an impact on the county. So the commissioners that I knew at the time, there were a couple of attempts to develop the Union Hotel and that property. But I was advised, I was asked to advise on it, and I looked at them, and they weren't macro enough. They were small, they weren't gonna do anything, they weren't gonna impact it, they were just gonna take the hotel and make a little thing out of it. They weren't gonna solve any problems, they weren't gonna make it a walkable town center. And I said, none of this is gonna work. Big players that looked at Flemington, they decided not to do it because you had to assemble too many properties. You had to assemble you had to send about, I think, 11 or 12 properties right around that Union Hotel area. It's a very difficult challenge. Commissioners talked to me about it and asked me if we would look at this and see if we could do it. You know, we had significant assets in the county already with Diamond Nation and Health Quest. And we were seeing what the impact of Flemington and Main Street was having on the entire county and on Merritt Township. And it was really a problem. My own accounting firm was actually on Main Street at 110 Main Street. And I moved off of 110 Main Street because I couldn't hire anybody. Because we would have people come in and then we'd give them an interview and they'd walk down Main Street and look at the hotel and they'd say, no, thanks. So what happened, I sold that building to David Hay and we moved out on the Health Quest campus and we developed that. But in the meantime, we were playing with ideas about how could we really do this? People are asking me to do it. Flemington Fur wanted me to do it because they knew they were trying to really get out of the business or downsize the business. And they own a lot of that property. So when I was looking at everything, I said, maybe there's a way to do this, but we really need to make this a town center that everybody's gonna be proud of. And I said, the obvious thing to do is to connect Main Street with Spring Street, combine all these properties, make this a mixed-use development that has some retail, has some restaurants with liquor license and bars, and has apartments. So, and a hotel. Hotel was important. Taking the existing hotel and making it bigger. So I sat with Phil Briner at the time, who was the mayor, and I hired Minnow and Wasco, the architects out of Lambertville, who do quite a bit of this work all up and down the East Coast. And I explained to them what I was trying to accomplish. And I said, put a concept plan together that makes sense for this. And they did. They put a plan together. They put a beautiful plan together. And I was able to sit with Phil and go through the plan. The plan had a variety of iterations, which I'm not going to bore you with. Started out much grander than it is now. It started out really trying to replace the hotel and do a replica because it's really hard to save that hotel, which I can explain a little bit about when we get into it. But for a lot of reasons, some people didn't want that to happen. So we ended up preserving the three main historical buildings on Main Street, which I'm glad we did because it's beautiful. It's gonna come out beautiful. Tremendously expensive to do, but it really came out beautiful. But in the meantime, I sat with Phil and the commissioners. Back then they were called freeholders, but I sat with those guys and I said, listen, this is what we're coming up with. And this is something that can be done. It's gonna be very complicated because you gotta assemble all these properties. The other thing that complicated is they didn't want to have eminent domain. I don't know if you know what eminent domain is, but eminent domain is where the government could come in and say, we're taking your property for the greater good. We need it. We're gonna put them all together. And that was off the table. So I had to go through and on a free market basis, negotiate with all these people to acquire these properties, which also got very complicated and very expensive. Long story short, we were able to assemble all this, put it together. Some people that were not in favor of the original project sued the town, not me, they sued the town to stop it. We could have, we already had it approved and we could have built that, but it would have taken much longer. So we agreed to settle it, make it smaller. We got rid of the college as a settlement, which was really unfortunate because we were gonna build a nursing school together with the Hunter Medical Center. And Georgian Court University, it was all set up, it was all planned, it was all designed. And we had to take that off the plans to make it work. We had to do that because we would probably lost another 5 years on top of this. We've been at this for 11 years already. So I said, let's get it done. We need to get something done. The plan is still a very good plan. Makes a lot of sense. And so we proceeded with that. But the interesting thing is that as we go through all this, and you look at all these connections, it's really interesting how everything comes back to Main Street to really do all these things. I think George has done a great job with Liberty Village. It's a very, very complicated project. You heard his engineering discussions on it. That is not easy stuff to do. That's very, very complicated, and you really need to know what you're doing. And my hat's off to George, because he's really tackling, really, really tough job. It's gonna come out great. And I want to thank Jeremy for what he's doing, because, he was a big part of really pushing this forward and keeping the ball rolling on everything. Jeremy's been a big help. Tony Parker, who's sitting here, is on the council. He's been a tremendous help. And it's really been great to have this support to really get us this far. But anyway, I just thought it was interesting to connect all these dots to kind of show you how we got back to where we are, because my wife and I have been in Flemington for 50 years. I was actually the treasurer of the Flemington Borough when I was 23 or 24 years old. How old? 20, you know, 12, right? Anyway, so
I'm doing math.
there's a lot of history, that we're very proud of. And we're really excited to bring this really to conclusion. You know, the saving of these precious buildings, and they really are precious. The hotel was built in 1814, originally. Think about that, it's over 200 years old. And when we went in to save it, we knew it was 200. Because you'll see some pictures here, we'll show you some pictures. But it really is, it's just like George's project, there's nothing easy about it. But in the end, you know, we didn't build this for something that was quick, we built this because our family believes in Hunter County, we believe in Flemington. And it's really built for the next 100 years, because it might take 100 years to pay that.
Oh, God.
But anyway, you know, we can walk you through some pictures.
Yeah, sure.
If you want to say.
Just real quick, we got plenty of time, but does anybody want to take a bathroom break or take a 2-minute break? Like, when we good? People? Audience participation.
I will say this, gonna interrupt 1 second. I don't think anyone really can grasp what this guy has gone through to get this far. And it was just spiraling down and spiraling down and spiraling down. And Jeremy and I took the position that this guy needs an advocate. He just needs an advocate to get, excuse my language, get rid of the bullshit, right? And so I've been razor focused on this, razor focused, to make sure that we knock down all the barriers that was put in front of this person to make this town nice. And that was all about, the only thing he's trying to do is make this town nice. Now, so I don't get it, like the school and all, but that's beyond my comprehension. It's beyond my comprehension why you wouldn't want people to come in and be a part of it. And because people who go to school here tend to come back and live. So you always know when a town is very successful is when you send your kids out and they come back to live and they prosper, right? So I just need to say that because this, it's incredible the amount of minutia that I had to wrangle myself through. And, you know, yeah, and just kind of like throw, you know, I didn't mind taking the hit. It was fine with me. For the greater good, right? I mean, take the hit for the greater good. So as he's going through this, I just want you to know that this is all from this side, his part, and for the greater good. So.
Thank you, Tony. And I think you should give Tony a round of applause. This guy's really stepped up when they had. So let's kind of walk through some pictures. This is all macro. I'm not getting any engineering stuff.
Don't wanna keep them asleep?
I don't have that intellect. But anyway, this is looking down Spring Street, across from Max Red Rooster. And these are the new apartments on Spring Street. There is there's underground parking underneath the entire, underneath the entire block. So this is when we started in 2021. When we started to tackle everything. And this is the back of the hotel. And if you walked in that hotel, really, it's very dangerous. Really, falling apart, literally, you can see the top floor there, there's no back on the building. And, it really was, really dangerous. Building next one. So this is a picture of the new lobby in the hotel. We tried to preserve as much brick on the interior as possible. It's very difficult to do because really a lot of it was just dust. But, blue is the reception desk, so you're gonna walk in off of Main Street. And this lobby, this is only part of the lobby. There's many sections of the lobby. There's like 3 lobbies with different brick areas. And there's another fireplace. Go to the next one. So again, this is just reflecting the lobby and what it looked like. So this was where I started. And this is before we got started, the original lobby. This is the new entrance going into the restaurant. One of the angles going into the entrance, going into the restaurant, with the stairs going upstairs. On the second. That's what it used to look like. And on the right is what it looks like now. This is another angle of it, same thing, it's the staircase going in the opposite direction.
What are we looking at on the left behind us? Like,
That's Jack's wine rack.
We're gonna have,
Wine bar, so.
we'll have dry aged steaks in there too.
He's steak and wine, so he said he had that.
You gotta drink to get through this.
Dude, I'm with you. Yes, we do.
This is another section of the staircase. This is the steakhouse. This is in the old potting shed building. So this is looking from Main Street into the steakhouse.
Changing the wall color.
Don't get there. The opening in the back is an open kitchen. An open kitchen there, and there's also, if you look closely to the right, you'll see, porch going outside, that's in the plaza, people will be able to go outside and eat. There's 2 stories to this. There's the first floor and a second floor. This is the new family restaurant. This is a different venue for, just family type food.
On the south side, behind the bank building.
Behind the bank building. And, it's a fairly large restaurant. It's got a bar, a lot of TVs for sports. And that's in a new part of the, building.
and this is the building where the old police station was.
Behind it.
Behind
This is new space.
the bank.
Behind the old Huntington County Bank.
Yes. So,
Off the plaza. The plaza's to the left.
We'll walk right out here to the plaza.
so I just want to prepare everybody for your next picture. Nobody see this. So this is a treat. Just saying that.
This is an entertainment gaming room that we've created. That's really attract a lot of people from. So this whole room is actually in the police building, the old police building. So we're gonna have duck pin bowling. All right. If you look right past that, there's sports simulators that are also not only golf. The kids can kick soccer balls and do things, and there's 3 different sports simulators. There's electronic shuffleboard in the back, and then there's seating all over here. What you can't see on the back of this wall down here, we can have a picture of it. We're creating a pour-your-own wall. Pour-your-own wall for beer, wine, vodka, bourbon, and tequila shots. So that's gonna be. That's gonna be down here. Now, this is gonna attract some younger people. This is gonna attract some things that we need on Main Street, create some activity, and we're really excited about this. So took the old police building and really made something good out of it.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Not a hotel. These are hotel rooms, what they'll look like. This is an overshot of the plaza. So this is connecting Main Street on the bottom to Spring Street on the top. If you look closely, there's a huge outdoor TV in the middle of this. There'll be seating areas, walking areas. And these are all apartments on top of these. Part of
Be a
this,
fountain in there, Jack?
sorry,
Was there going to be a fountain at some point?
I don't think you did.
No, no,
Okay.
there was a long time.
So this area here, these are new hotel rooms. That's the extension of the old new hotel. As you go further back, there are apartments. On the right side, are all apartments. That's the, this is the lobby of the, north apartment building. There's two lobbies, north and south building. This is the north apartment building. This is right across the street, just to give you a vantage point from Matchburg Boost. And that's it. So.
So I mean, I had questions for these guys and they really filled in a lot of blanks. I got a couple of questions for each. But certainly you folks probably have questions too, all right? But I do want to say, as I'm listening to these two guys talk, something I remembered about South Bend, Indiana. I was watching a newscast about their whole like revitalization. This is the place that had lost the Studebaker plant. It's like 60 years of just like, what do we do? And it was funny because the newscaster said, you know, there was this stagnant period of this can't do attitude. And when I'm listening to this, I'm like, well, this is not can't. This is the real stuff. This is the can. And it's hard to get stuff done. It's hard to get people out of that attitude. It's tough. It's really hard to get people on that page. And that's the hope, you know, in the spirit of Lyceum, like that's kind of what this is all about. It's like, hey, we don't live in little, you know, silos. That's not how life is. That's not normal. That is not. That's not what community is about. So these two projects, you got a bunch, you got a lot, all right? And it's interesting to see this now, having been kind of in the background, looking at all the details and intricacies, and just how many cooks there are in the kitchen, so to speak, and what comes out of it. You know, it's extraordinary to see. And it's time, it's energy, it's effort, it's money, it's all that, right? So hats off to you guys for coming in and doing this. You know, we're gonna fuse two parts of this town together. You know, the Union Hotel and Liberty Village, and it's gonna do some things, and that's what we want to figure out. What's gonna happen? What are we looking forward to? But I had a couple questions for you guys, and certainly if anyone in the audience, you got some, we'll get you. But I was curious, you know, both of your plans, as far as you've got a mix of housing, hotel rooms, retail. How do you think all that together is going to contribute to the vibrancy and economic success of Flemington downtown?
Courthouse Square, so I think that, I really feel that Courthouse Square is gonna be a catalyst. Not only for Hunterdon County, but also for New Jersey. We're trying to make this destination. People can live, work, and play. But, you know, we also have a little bit of an asset in our back pocket with Diamond Nation. For those of you that are not familiar with Diamond Nation is one of the nation's leading sports tourism facilities in the country. We draw over 350,000 people a year through Diamond Nation. Over 50,000 players come through Diamond Nation a year. And ironically, most of those people stay in Somerset County because there's nowhere to stay. Now, we're not going to get all those people. because that's a whole demographic. There are people that want to spend money, people that don't want to spend money, people that want to stay at a Hampton Inn or whatever. But we're gonna get a significant amount that are gonna make an impact on us. And with that, we really feel between people that are gonna wanna reside here, we started a webpage. We started a webpage, a flash page, just for the apartments. Just for the first apartments that are gonna be 100 units. We already have 150 applications. People wanna come here and live. They wanna be in a walkable community. So we believe that, the residential side of it is gonna attract people. We believe the hotel side of it is gonna be great. We have some of our hotel people here. I want to introduce him. Mike Marino, raise his hand, he's our general manager. Rob Flemington, our director of sales. Katie Cash, who's our marketing director. We have a best-in-class team that can go out and really, they're already entrenched in the community, they're doing things, and we're gonna make Flemington the place to come back to. I don't know if you're aware of it, but there's also something happening with Mark Solik and Hunterdon County as, being designated as a motion picture. New Jersey motion picture film. That's a big thing. There's already been some movies, some significant movies out here. And speaking with Mark, he toured the hotel. He said, I'll fill this place up. People will be here. He said, the first thing everybody asked me about movies in Hunterdon County is how can we get near the courthouse? The courthouse is gonna be a magnet. We'll do this right. So there's a lot of things happening, and that's why we have the belief that we can really make this something that's gonna be special. For not only the state of New Jersey, but on the East Coast. Our market in Diamond Nation is from Boston to Baltimore. You know how many kids, millions of people are, you know how many kids are playing sports from Boston to Baltimore? And they all come to Diamond Nation. You speak to anybody that's played softball or baseball, they've been to Diamond Nation. It's a great facility, and adding this to it is just gonna help with everything else. So that's why I feel we're gonna be okay.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, as far as the benefits, you have mostly residential, but you also have some other things going on here. What do you see as those components, as benefits?
Well, housing is a benefit in and of itself. People want to own a home. That's the American dream, and I've been a home builder now for my 40-60 year. And it's a very rewarding business. You know, when you drive, I can drive down many streets in Hoboken where we renovated buildings and then built new buildings that look like the old buildings. In fact, two of our projects, one historic preservation, of course. We rebuilt what looks like 150-year-old brownstones, but they're brand new. And it was the first and the second project that ever got an award from the Historic Preservation Committee, because we try to build with the vernacular of the neighborhood. We don't want it to stand out. We want it to blend in. There's a modern look to it, but there's many echoes of the past. We actually, and we were just getting going, my partner and I drove the streets and we're just looking at these buildings and we're just taking pictures. I love that box bay. I love that lintel treatment. I love that cornice work. You know, we would picture these things and then we would recreate them in our new building. So it looked like it was in the vernacular. So that's kind of cool. You know, and also when you drive, if anybody really wanted to be bored to death, I can drive you in Hoboken and Jersey City and show you every year what we got done and where we got done and, you know, how we got it done. So it's a great business. We feel like we're making an American dream for people. That's really what I love about this business. Seeing what you've done over your life and then seeing the people living in what you've done and, you know, raising their families and building the parks and the bike trails and really making not just living there, but creating a lifestyle that's really spectacular. I really have to commend Jack for hiring Minnow Wasco. I hired Minnow Wasco. They designed about 5 projects for me, and they are stellar. Our amenity packages are right on the line with the level of quality that Jack brings to Flemington. And this is going to be, his project would be a game-changing project. I can guarantee you that. People are going to come to Flemington because there's going to be all kinds of stuff to do. Those bars, those restaurants, those recreation areas he's creating there. I don't even think you needed Diamond Nation to feed that thing. I think if there was no Diamond Nation, the people would flock to this place. But with Diamond Nation and those 300,000, I mean, it's gonna be both solid. I hope it, because I know you, I can get a room. up there.
Gotta talk to our salesman.
Way to deflect.
So I do,
That's his way of saying probably not.
I have a quick follow-up too.
Okay.
I'm looking at this, potential these townhouses. Who could potentially move in? Who are you foreseeing moving into?
I think it's gonna be two cohorts. I think it's gonna be empty nesters that wanna have the townhouse lifestyle, because all the landscaping is gonna be done by the homeowner association. It's gonna be maintenance free for the most part, other than inside your home, of course. So I think we're gonna see empty nesters that wanna get into those walkable communities. They don't wanna get in their car to go to a bar and a restaurant. They wanna be able to walk there, walk home. And then that way they can get drunk. You don't have to worry about. So, you know, that's really what I think is gonna be the pull, and then I think it's gonna be the young folks, Gen Z, Gen Y, that wanna also be involved. Go out, thinking and dining, playing. It's really like, he's really creating like Hoboken type of draw. I mean, why do people wanna live in Hoboken? 1 mile square, it's got 50,000 people in it, and yet there's 55 bars and restaurants and everything's walkable. And of course, you have the path train right there on the southeast end of the town. You got the Holland Tunnel at the bottom and the Lincoln Tunnel at the top. I mean, there's no more transit rich town than those river towns right down there. Which is why I was so interested to see if we get railroad service into Manhattan from here, but you know, he's talking tens of millions of dollars to get those 5 bridges back in operation, so that's not something I'm gonna tackle. But at some point in the future, I think somebody, I mean, what you have to do is you have to generate traffic. If New Jersey Transit thought they would get enough commuters out of this area to run them in and out of Manhattan, they fix the bridges, as simple as that. So first thing you gotta do is you gotta create a reason why people wanna live here. And he's doing it, we're doing it, and I think it's, you know, we're literally 3 years from now, I think this town is gonna be completely different in terms of opportunities for people to live, work, play, and really just stay. They're not gonna wanna leave. It's gonna have everything they want within walking distance.
And just another element of this, the veterans homes.
Yep.
And that was, you know, when the sausage was being made on this, I have to tell you, I was part of the infancy of this too, the conversation about it. And we had talked about the veterans homes, and when you do that, where does that money come from as far as like financing, as far as, is it state, is it federal? What's the story?
These are being financed by the Federal Housing Trust Fund, which has a special pocket just for veterans housing. And they award applications for the point system. So if you do veterans housing, you get a certain number of points. If you do disabled veterans housing, you get even more points. So obviously, we wanted our application to be approved, so we just put it all in, whatever we could put in, we put in.
And also, you know, one of the things this made free. And one of the other things we were talking about, housing for adults with special needs. And as a father of a kid with special needs, it's gonna need something like this. But people in town, Flemington Borough residents who have kids, and there's several, who are special needs, you know, those are the concerns that kind of keep you up at night. What is gonna happen after I'm gone, right? Unfortunately, that didn't make it through, because it was a little more complicated. Tell us about where that comes in. What makes that?
So unfortunately, the financing of special needs housing took a real hit. When they changed the COA rules, Council on Affordable Housing rules, they used to, I wanna see if I can short this. You used to be able to take your affordable housing obligation, and you can either build it on site, or you could write a check to a nonprofit provider, and they would build your affordable housing offset. It generated huge amounts of housing. And special needs housing, you got a credit for every bedroom. So if you did regular market rate housing, regular affordable housing, not special needs, regular affordable housing, you got 1 COA credit per home. If you did special needs housing, you got one POA credit per bed. So one 4-bedroom home got you out of building 4 homes. If you build one of them, it was like building 4. So sometime around the mid-90s, a group that said, well, step back one step. Most of that money went to urban areas because that's where the affordable housing providers were. That's where the need was the greatest. That's where the providers were the greatest. I chaired an affordable housing, a special needs housing company called Our House, which is located in Providence. And they asked me to join because they knew I was a builder and, you know, I was kind of active in political aspects of being a home builder, legislatively and regulatorily. And so they asked me to join. Within 2 years, I was made chairman of the board. I was there for 12 years. They had a 4-year term limit, and in my 4th year, they changed it. So I was stuck there for 12 years. They made it 3 terms. So anyway, we built 26 group homes, 100% funded by developers making these regional contribution agreements, they're called RCAs. So along comes this housing group, this housing advocacy group that decides that they're gonna sue COA and say that regional contribution agreements should be illegal because all you're doing is you're concentrating the poor people in the cities. They knocked it out. They changed the law, no more regional contribution agreements, and the amount of special needs housing and went just plummeted. And same thing happened with regular market rate housing. There was just not a big impetus to do that anymore because you just couldn't do what made the most sense. Builders do what makes sense economically. So, so anyway, that's kind of what it.
Yeah, and I asked that because, I mean, we know we have a housing crisis nationally, I would argue worldwide, but also the idea of a diversity of housing. And we have 2 projects that pin down a diversity. We do need more different types of housing in Flemington, let's be honest. But these 2 projects are addressing, at least some of the needs, right? So that's why I wanted to ask you. But I guess I have a couple more questions, but honestly, I'm curious about what we got going on in the heads out there in our audience. So does anybody have a question for one of our guests here tonight?
Yeah,
Us,
that's
Mr. Malone?
Jack. So what's going to be in front, with a unfold benches? You got the restaurant at that, there will be apartment, and main building in the front, along Main Street.
You know, on the 2nd, 3rd floor,
Yeah,
up. Yeah, they're gonna be apartments. They're gonna be beautiful apartments. They've got high ceilings. Now that used to be, a replica of the, theater in Washington. Lake
Right,
Shop.
right, yeah.
And the top floor was actually theater. And if you go in the top floor now, it's a little dangerous to walk up there. right now. But if you go in the top floor now, I mean, the ceilings are unbelievable. They're like 14 feet high, and they're gonna be beautiful apartments.
And how many restaurants? go there?
Sorry?
The steakhouse, potting shed buildings, the family restaurant, just those 2?
How many restaurants?
Yeah.
There's gonna be 3 restaurants. There's gonna be a pub, a family restaurant, and a steakhouse,
Okay,
and we're working on a 4th.
where would the pub be?
Pub is in the bank building, first floor.
Oh, okay, okay,
That's pretty cool too. I have a picture of that.
nice.
Any other inquiries, specifics?
I'm really glad you mentioned walkability because I believe that these 2 projects in tandem create people who, as you said, are gonna wanna live and walk and, you know, walk to shops, walk to attractions, walk because walking's healthy, walk to see their friends, have meeting places, all the things that everybody wants. With all of your retention and, it's not detention, right? It's,
Well, it's stormwater storage.
okay. I think some of those are like bioswale
Yeah.
areas.
But 2,
So
well, or bio, 2 or convention.
in Chautauqua, which was on that card, because Chautauqua is a part of the Lyceum movement. It's a beautiful place and they do very thoughtful design. But all the bioswale areas have some signage I know that New Jersey doesn't require that kind of signage, but there's a lot of signage saying that the stuff that's growing here is, you know, special or interesting and why it's there. And I think we don't have enough, things to make walking around interesting. So I think it might be interesting to have some signage about what's growing and why it's growing there, and that you're doing something helpful to the environment, and, you know, it's kind of a walkability asset. So that's a request.
That's not a question, it's a request. All
Yes.
right, no more requests.
All right, oh, question back, we got a couple more, here we go.
Hey Jack, you give a best guess estimate on when you timing wise feel like the project will be wrapping up or getting close to it?
That's the
Don't
zillion
hold
dollar
you to it,
question.
don't gonna hold you to it.
Well,
Give JCP and L's money.
it's complicated because we're on track for November 1st. However, we ran into a problem getting the power from Jersey Central Power and Light. We have all of our utilities in, but getting them to connected has really been a challenge. We don't have our meters, so we're waiting on those, and it's put us back. Our best guess right now might be December 1st, it might be December 15th. We don't get the power, may not be this year, which I really, really hate to say. Because I want to be open for the Christmas season, I want that hotel open, parade. I want to have Main Street look beautiful, with lights on it. And we have guys working Saturday and Sunday, the power company is just really, really been difficult to respond to this. Tony knows that's the, just so you know, Tony, the text I got yesterday.
Oh,
I got
yes.
yesterday when I was with you,
Yes, yes.
was working. Working,
Really?
no show. No show,
Okay.
working on it, they're still working on it.
You know what,
Yeah, we got.
I don't know how you're not on drugs.
Well, how do we know?
I'd have to, yeah, listen, they have to put me on Thorazine PID. Yeah.
We had another,
I consider not a question, but we all know the hell that you guys have been through to make this happen. And I just want to say, I think on behalf of all of us here tonight, right? Thank you. Thank you for choosing Flemington. Thank you for sticking with us.
Appreciate it.
so real quick, one last thing for you guys, you know, this is the county seat. This is an important piece. But one of the things we were talking about is, you know, what happened, you know, we stopped, business stopped here, people stopped coming here. One of the things that as a county seat, we used to have is the county had their workers in office buildings on Main Street. And then they moved. And that took away a lot of clientele for our local businesses. And it's funny, I see on your project, these construction workers, they're hitting up Jack's Pizza and Tacos all the time.
Oh, Main Street Pizza and
What's that?
Main Street, the name change.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Line of. Hey, good morning. With this guy, Mr. Guy.
Beautiful awning, and I should know this. You're very busy. But my point is, you know, so many factors contribute to that, and being as we're the county seat. As far as these two projects, what do we, and this question is for everybody. What do we foresee happening? When we have more people living here in Liberty Village? And more people coming here to either live, stay, have fun, Courthouse Square? What do we see as the county seat? Because nobody likes when we compare ourselves to something. And that's a county seat. That's hopping upon. What do we see happening to fun? We see possibility that, can we imagine that? And I guess my question is, can you see it? Because you got two projects here. You saw some of this stuff. A lot of us have never seen, right? Some of these visuals, you know, unless you're on council, committee, you don't see this. These guys, you don't see it. But when you see it, I think that changes your perception a bit. It's less of a mystery and more of a, when can we have that? Because I'll tell you this. You talk about these other cities across the country, towns across the country, talk about, I think there's a self-esteem issue. And I think Flemington's attitude might want to be, we deserve good stuff. We deserve it. And we got it coming, folks. So I wanted to just share tonight some thoughts, get these guys here to share their perspectives, get you all out there, you know, just kind of thinking, all right? Because we don't have to have this discussion because I only got this place till 9. So just some thoughts, you know, just, I like to, you know, look, I'm a teacher, so I like to leave my students with things to ponder when they walk out of the room. Well, since the Lyceum is a civic classroom, I'm gonna treat it as such, all right? Think about some of these questions. What does a thriving Flemington look like to you? As these projects move forward, what small, concrete steps can we take as neighbors? Because I'm looking at a lot of my borough friends and residents out here to make Flemington strong. What role can everyday residents like you play in making sure that these investments benefit the whole community? And what part of Flemington history do you most want to help with while you're here? So it's stuff to think about. It's stuff to converse about. It's stuff to go to Courthouse Square one day and talk about with people. Take a bike ride around the new Liberty Village, right? These are things you want to think about, all right? So,
Can
Yeah.
I answer the third question?
yeah, sure, whatever.
So here's what you guys can do. You guys gotta show up at the council meetings, and there's a big meeting coming up next week
On
Monday.
on zoning.
Which is
There are
extremely
some
important.
critical changes being made to an archaic zoning system as it relates to ground floor retail on Main Street. So if you
And
want
other
to,
things.
what can you do to make sure that it's gonna benefit, that these, you know, what can you do to make it stronger, and all those questions domino into this point I'm trying to make.
It is extremely important for the community to stick together right now. Extremely important.
I have found in
We've
46
getting
homes.
staggered, you know, we've taken a very bold step to knock down all the restrictions, get rid of SIP codes and all of that, so that people are welcome to come in and do business and and so we need everybody's voices to be there to say, you know, this, the other side, probably 20 people, are still pulling back from yesterday. And, I'm not a kumbaya kind of guy, so I mean, I'm just hitting it hard and saying, no, we're just not doing this. The only other thing I'm gonna add real quick is that I just want everybody to also know that this opening of a hotel and housing in whole bit is probably bigger than anything that's happened in Flemington since probably Lincoln. So we are treating it as such, and so Jack, along with myself, pulled together a committee. So that we have a series of celebrations, not just one day, but a series, starting in hopefully in late November, if nothing else but the positive, and going all the way into February, and then picking it back up in April, because I just want this to be constantly talked about, constantly talked about. You know, people are, Christmas time is when everybody is out and about. And what happens in January, we still want them out. What happens around Valentine's Day, we still want them out. So there's so much opportunity. That said, we need to start focusing on the other development as well, and we're gonna really challenge Stuart to like talk about it and talk about it and talk about it and update people on what's going on in COVID. Because I think that's how we can also pull.
Yeah, and the other point I wanted to make was show up at planning board meetings. If you see a project that you're interested in, go to the planning board here. You'll learn all about it, and then you can decide if you want to support it, and you should speak up and say, this is a great project, you guys should pass this. And quickly pass it. There's no reason to go through a year of planning board hearings, because all the people that are against the project show up.
Yeah.
The people that are against it show up every time, and the people that support it, I don't know why they don't, but they don't seem to. I mean, I've been doing this for 46 years, and I can tell you, it's probably 10 to 1. Opponents versus supporters show up.
And it's really the silent majority.
Exactly, exactly. So that's what you can do to make It's one
Chairman,
stronger,
can I
be
ask-
more
can I
involved.
ask you a question? Can I
Sure,
ask-
yeah, question.
Tony mentioned the word opportunity, so this isn't a question about either one of your projects. I can't talk about those, there's some that in. My question is this. We've got Jack's project coming online, got George's project coming online. What's next? Which is one of your questions up here, right? And the word opportunity came up. We are an opportunity zone. That is something the federal government has designated us. And I want to just recognize somebody in this room that has been working on that Union Hotel project longer than anyone else.
This guy
in this
right
room.
here.
That's so I just want to recognize Todd there. But that being said, Todd and Kristen put together this and FCP, and Robin, and we all worked hard on a big opportunity zone summit right before COVID. And then, of course, from what I understand, the financing related to opportunity zones is, it was supposed to be temporary and it's going to be, the federal government is either made it permanent or it's going to be soon. And my question to you guys is this. What was the difference in your financing from the time that you started your project, Jack, to a couple years later when you started your project, George? And then what's next? In other words, can we use those opportunity zone monies can we encourage other people to use opportunity zone monies, and how much does it affect those projects? For projects that maybe not are on the same scale as yours, but are more smaller pocket projects. So there's a lot of questions in there, but could you talk about opportunity zones in general and how they affected your projects and how we could encourage it in the future?
Opportunity zones, they were created in 2017. And there's about 8,500 of them across the country. And they're for areas that are in need of redevelopment. And what happened, it was a bipartisan project. It's put together by Tim Scott out of South Carolina and Cory Booker from New Jersey. And it was actually Obama that started it, but he didn't get it passed. And then Trump got it passed and took credit for it, naturally. So, anyway, it was supposed to expire in 12/31/26. It's been extended in this recent tax bill that was passed, a big beautiful bill. It's put in place permanently. So it's a permanent program now. Now, why, the reason why it's important, it's not so much, I'm not gonna get into the details and really dig into the tax benefits, but it's not so much the financing that makes it viable. It's the ability to attract capital. Because people will invest their capital into opportunity zones because they get significant tax benefits, both going in and when they exit the property, there's even more tax benefits. If it wasn't for the opportunity zone, I would have never been able to raise the capital that we raised. And this project would have been dead.
And how many opportunity zones are there in Hardin County?
One,
And what's that one?
Flemington Borough. And the other thing that was attractive,
Not just.
I can tell you the other thing that helped, that allowed me to raise the amount of capital we raised. We raised a lot of capital for this. It's an expensive project. People were scratching their head and said, "Did what?" I said, "Yeah." The reason why is because most opportunity zones are in areas really that have problems. They're in Newark, Camden, Oakland, cities like that. When you say you're in Hunterdon County, New Jersey, one of the wealthiest counties in the country, you have an opportunity zone? People go, "Really? How's that possible? Flemington's an opportunity zone?" Yes, Flemington's an opportunity zone. It met the criteria just because of the demographic of a small area. So the important thing to remember, as Susan brought out, is it's being extended. So you have property sitting out there, at Dave Dallas's property, you have Turntable Junction, you have properties at Agway. These are all potential opportunity zone projects that Courthouse Square will lead the way. Courthouse Square will be recognized nationally as an opportunity zone project. And if there's a receptiveness by or municipal leaders to attract the capital, you'll bring a lot of capital in from funding. Really depends on leadership. The leadership's got to want it. They gotta embrace it. Because the first thing developers say is when they look at developers have a map. They have a map. I didn't have the map because I lived in Flemington, so we didn't use the map. We said we want to help Flemington. The national guys have a map. And they go, okay, where's the easiest place to go and develop? I can go here, I can go here, I can go here. What's the political environment? What's the planning process like? What's the application process like? Are you welcome? Does it take 5 years to get it approved? Or do they have fast track it and do it in a year? All those things become important. We have an attraction with this opportunity zone. We gotta embrace it, right? Gotta really embrace it. And you gotta be an advocate for it. And this town could just be amazing. But that's where it is. It really deals with capital, not finance. Financing doesn't look that.
All right, my friends,
Good.
I think we're good. I think we got a lot of stuff talked about tonight, and this was nice, and this is how the Lyceum this is what it's about. Sharing ideas. So listen, thanks for coming out tonight and, spending your night in this, school cafeteria. And,
I see him.
Where's the food?
you got light bites over there, right?
Nope,
Thanks so much.
snacks.
Have a wonderful night. Appreciate it.
Nice job. Hey, thanks. Gotta get that word out.
Excellent. You had enough.
Great job, great job. That was good.
Oh,
See you all.
Thank you.
All right.
Are you sure you want this?